Welcome to Heat Checks and Hail Marys. This is Mike Kegley. Well, the Illini have lost two in a row, and Brett Bielema must look at November with a little bit of trepidation. Since coming to Illinois, his teams haven't closed out seasons in as positive of a manner as he would like. His overall record at Illinois is 5-7 in November. And of course, many fans look back to the 2022 season, which could have been much better than 8-4 with a better finish. Could this season finish the same way? As you look back at each year, Brett's teams were 2-1 in 2021 in the month of November, 1-3 in 2022, which was his best team. Now I'm going to give him a pass on that Michigan loss, but certainly if you look back at the Michigan State and the Purdue losses, those two were mysterious and very frustrating for Illini fans. Last year, Illinois was 2-2 in November, and of course, came up one game short of a bowl. This year in 2024, Illinois is now 1-0. So with the Fighting Illini basketball team having their season starting on Monday against Eastern Illinois University, and with the basketball team being very inexperienced in terms of playing together as a group, this could be a stressful November for Illini fans. But having two teams that are actually in the mix for something in the postseason makes it fun, but the stress levels are going to be a little high. So you better put on your big boy pants if you're an Illini fan in the next few weeks. So let's start off with Hail Mary number one. I've got a few hot takes in here, just a couple different things that I wanted to talk about. Now, the first one is the Illini have struggled a bit in November under Bielema, but I have a theory about that because I have a theory on everything. Illinois was a little bit behind in getting NIL up and running. They actually wanted to adhere to what the NCAA was trying to do, not only in the letter, but the spirit of the rules that they were issuing, or the guidelines or suggestions is what they really were. Thus, if you look at recruiting over the years, Illinois has a little less talent at defensive line and linebacker than what we would like to have. And the offensive line hasn't borne as much fruit. Now, what I mean by that is, particularly in the Brett Bielema system, you get a redshirt freshman year, 2 years of practice, and then you get a junior with 2 years of eligibility. And we're just now starting to hit that time frame for Illinois. And again, haven't got quite as much support from that group on the line. And so recruiting has to improve. If you want to increase the number of difference makers on the team, you have to win recruitments against bigger and, quote, better schools. As it is now in November, the Illini slow down as depth becomes an issue. And this becomes an even bigger issue as injuries piled up. If this isn't a reason for people to earmark some NIL funds for football, I don't know what is. As the talent gap drops between starters and backups, then things will get better. But right now, the gap between the starters and the backups is too big. Better recruiting will close that gap and help the Illini weather a long season and the injuries that are inevitable in a conference as strong as the Big Ten. My second hot take is the law of unintended consequences strikes again. The transfer portal and NIL hasn't really helped many teams morph into Ohio State or Georgia, but it has made the Big Ten and SEC conference games really entertaining to watch, even when it's not your team playing. In watching college football, for the things that I do here in terms of Big Sports Radio and the Illini Guys Sports Spectacular and the podcasts that we do, like Heat Checks and Hail Marys, I've really noticed that in the Big Ten and SEC, the middle of the road teams are jumbled very closely together, more so than what we've seen in the past. It almost seems comparable to the NFL. We have seen so many games this year that are one score games going into the fourth quarter, which means literally one play can make the difference. So make sure you be careful when you gamble because it's not your dad's college football. Now, take number three is in the Minnesota and Illinois football game. There were quite a few obvious fouls one could see on the camera that were blatant but uncalled by the referees. The no calls cut both ways. There was a lot of holding by both teams, and there were a lot of penalties that could have been called. We also saw a controversial targeting call. We saw Altmaier hit after giving himself up, and that wasn't called. And this is on the heels of seeing Pat Bryant take a blow to the head that wasn't called the prior week. It's unpredictable at best and baffling at worst to see the inconsistency of calls on a weekly basis. The Big Ten makes approximately $1 billion with a B dollars a year for the rights to its sports programming. Why not make basketball and football referees full-time employees? They could train and condition year round. That's what professional athletes do is they train themselves so that they don't have to think on the court or on the football field. They just react and get the job done. The same thing happens in the military. You're training for a mission. You want to make sure you don't have to think. You want to make sure you react and do what you need to do to get the job done. No way anyone can tell me this wouldn't be helpful for our officials. They could also review films, work on calls, review old games, look at things, and make sure that in their Rolodex of experience, they have everything they need to be effective and efficient. It seems like a no brainer in my mind to pay for this relatively small cost to keep the games officiated at the highest level of quality and as consistently called as possible. If the athletes and coaches train 12 months a year, why not the officials? Set up the officials to succeed, just like the players and coaches are.
This is the run my own business dream. This is the college is paid for dream. This is the retire early dream. This is Busey, where your dreams and possibilities become moments through trusted guidance and expertise, through lifelong relationships. Because we're here to help you achieve the life you've always envisioned.
Now we're going to move on to heat check number 2. This is Illini men's basketball player expectations. They obviously fire up the season on Monday night playing Eastern Illinois University. And there's a list of expectations or tips that I'd have for key players as this season starts. For Kasparis Jakusionis, I would tell him, just let the game come to you. Use your skills to set yourself up for success. But just importantly, set up your teammates for success. His passing ability is phenomenal. And by acting on it, he will be able to open himself up for shots down the way. The balancing act for him will be to value the possession, but not allow that value to keep you from taking risks. In other words, you might have some turnovers. Make sure they're not the stupid ones. For Trey White, I would say you're the jack of all trades. You're the guy who can be the Swiss Army knife for the Illini. Go out there and do the little things that make teams win. He has the physical ability to do that, and he can contribute in so many ways for this Illini team. For Morez Johnson, I would tell him to keep up his intensity. Bring it every night, but be patient. You and Ivisic can be a fearsome 1-2 punch. You'll each have games where you will make a huge difference, and there might be some nights based upon how the other plays that you won't make as big of an impact on the game, and that's okay too. For Ty Rodgers, it would be a very simple message. You must be productive on the court. Take what the defense gives you, lock guys down on the other end, grab rebounds, grab loose balls, do everything that's necessary to win. And oh, by the way, if they leave you open, you have to have the confidence to knock down the shot. Tomislava Visic, use your height and your skills to protect the rim and provide spacing on the offensive end. He may be one of the really, really good finds of the offseason. He's got good footwork. He's excellent skill set. He can stretch defenses out. He could be a real difference maker for the Illini, and I'm excited to see what he has. And then when you think of he and Morez together and the differences in the intensity that Morez brings, it is going to be a fabulous 1-2 punch, as I said before. For Will Riley, keep attacking, keep being aggressive. But you have to remember one thing: your teammates can help you and you can help them. You don't have to beat anyone just by yourself. Kylan Boswell, you need to be the leader. And that means not just on the court, but off the court. And the best way to lead is lead by example. The older players are being looked at on how they react to things, how they deal with stress, and how they deal with negative things happening on the court. Show the guys with less experience how that is done. Ben Humrickhouse, find ways to get into positions on the court where you have the advantage. Use your brain to get to the position on the court first, and that allows you to dictate the action. There's plenty of things that Humrickhouse can do that makes it tough on opposing teams, and he's got to be able to understand those things, understand where he does those, get there first, use his big body to impose his will and make people react to him. And finally, in terms of the players who I think will be playing a lot this year, Dre Gibbs, Lawhorn, be patient. Contribute when you're on the court. Let productivity be your way to be on the court more often. Sometimes people get impatient. They expect to get everything they want on day one. And as those of us who are a lot older realize, that's just not life. But if he keeps pressing and keeps being productive on the court, and again, you've heard me say this before, might be a key rebound, might be a steal, it might be grabbing a ball off the floor. Those are the type of things that keep you in games. And those are the type of things that when a coach looks down the bench, they remember when they see your face and they get you back into the game. Worry less about your playing time and worry more about what you're doing. I would say this to any player on the team. That is what gets you in the game. The process, doing the right thing, is what gets you minutes. This team has the makings to be a fantastic team this year, but I'm telling you, the start of the year could be a challenge. And I would say to each and every player on the team, based on the Old Miss game, play defense, please. I think then everything will take care of itself.
Red Grange wasn't just a football player, he was a legend. Discover the untold story of Illini great Red Grange in a new novel by Doug Vilhard called The Golden Age of Red. This captivating book takes you back to the 1920s when a humble young Illinois player transformed into the galloping ghost and electrified the nation. Get your copy of The Golden Age of Red by Doug Vilhard today. Available on Amazon and wherever books are sold.
Hail Mary number 3. The Big Ten team tiers. There was a big shakeup this week. As you look at things, you're going to say, yeah, on top, not much different here. I think the top tiers have been locked. And while there might be an upset that'll happen to change them, the schedule doesn't look to have a lot of upset opportunities left. In the middle of the Big Ten, it is absolutely getting nuts. Buckle up because every week there's some great matchups. That's the beauty of the 18-team Big Ten is there's always a good game or two out there. And of course, nobody wants to be at the bottom. Let's look at tier 1. No surprise here. You have Oregon and Ohio State. Oregon is still number 1 after traveling to Michigan and beating up the Wolverines. So good for Oregon. Everybody appreciates beating up the Wolverines, and they should be very thankful they can do it in year 1 in the Big Ten. Meanwhile, Ohio State got down early to Penn State on the back of a pick six. But despite spotting the Nittany Lions a 10-0 lead, the Buckeyes cruised to an easy victory, 20-13. And yes, for Penn State fans, it's just another example of Coach Franklin not being able to get over the top of the Michigan/Ohio State hurdle. Now, there's no sin in that. He is a great coach and he's done wonderful things for Penn State, but cracking those two is a really, really tough thing to do. And it really helps when you have Phil Knight money to get you up in that group. Now, if we go to tier two, this is Penn State and Indiana. Now, Penn State suffered the same old fate as they usually do at the hands of the Buckeyes. Everybody's used to it. And of course, this week, Indiana faces Michigan. And they also have Ohio State coming as well. After that 2-game stretch, we will see if Indiana deserves to be in the CFP or if they're just having an excellent year, which there is nothing you can take away from the Hoosiers based on what they've already accomplished. Certainly, the Hoosiers have been blowing teams out, but they are devoid of that signature win that the CFP will require. So they have their opportunity to beat a defending national champion. Granted, it's not as shiny as it would be if Michigan had a quarterback, but they have Ohio State coming. And if you want to say you deserve a shot in the CFP, beat Ohio State, and nobody's going to argue with you. Now we get to tier three, and I think there's 3 teams here. Iowa is back, Minnesota, and Illinois. Iowa crushed Wisconsin and looks to be on pace for yet another 9-win season and a bowl bid. Kirk Ferentz has been so critical to this program. He just wins 9 or 10 games, it seems like, almost every year. He's back there again. Now, Iowa's had a nice schedule this year, but you win 9 games, you get a good recruiting class, and you go to battle next season. Iowa's got that template down. Minnesota now has a 4-game winning streak, and it has the 3rd longest winning streak in the league behind Oregon and Indiana. And of course, Illinois is on a 2-game losing streak, but they have 3 winnable games to open the door to a 9-win season as well. If they can do that, that will be the first 9-win season since 2007. Go to tier, that's Washington, Michigan, and Wisconsin in my eyes. Now, Washington just had a dramatic victory over USC, but they have lost 3 of the last 5 games, and they have the unenviable task of heading east to face the Nittany Lions, who should be pretty angry about what happened against the Buckeyes. They thought they had an opportunity to win that game, and literally the offense could not do anything against Ohio State. Michigan has lost 3 of their last 4, and now they get to travel to red-hot Indiana. We will see if Michigan's line play, which is still relatively good, can do something to disrupt the Indiana Hoosiers. Right now, they haven't even had a close game. They finally got down once, unlikely that it was Michigan State who would do that. But now Indiana faces big brother, Michigan. Should be an interesting game, but I'm not certain that Michigan has enough, and they might get rolled by the Hoosiers. Wisconsin has faced 3 ranked teams, plus Iowa, and they've lost each of those games. Luke Fickell must be frustrated at this season's progress. And of course, hosting Oregon cannot be a good way to follow up the Iowa loss. This could be a very telling week for the Badgers. And with the fan base concerned about the Badgers taking a step backwards from the relative excellence they've had the last 30 years, it may be a bumpy road for Coach Fickell as the season closes out if it doesn't work in the fashion that he's hoping for. Then you get to tier 5. I know people are going to laugh, but UCLA is out of tier 6. Nebraska, Michigan State, Northwestern, and USC are all in this group. Now, admittedly, it's crowded, But UCLA is on a 2-game winning streak, and they get to host Iowa on Friday night. I have to admit, I love Friday night Big Ten football, so I will tune in. Nebraska's on a 3-game losing skid. They travel to USC, host Wisconsin, and then travel to Iowa to finish the season. They only need one win to be bowl eligible, but I don't know that there's any automatic victories out there for them. Matt Rule's done a good job at Nebraska, but the fans have expectations for him to get the Huskers into a bowl, and getting into a bowl this year would relieve a lot of pressure off of him. And of course, when you look at Michigan State, they started off quickly, going up 10-0 over the Hoosiers, and then got blown out. They've lost 5 of 6 going into a bye week, and then they will face Illinois in the battle of 2-game losing streak teams. Northwestern beat Purdue, but now they have to face Ohio State, Michigan, and Illinois after their bye week. That's not good. Tough for Northwestern to avoid falling into that bottom tier. Now we get to USC, that might be the league's biggest underperformer. I'm not certain "might's" the right word. With 4 wins, but losing 4 of the last 5, the Trojans host Nebraska. Then they visit UCLA, and they finish with Notre Dame. They've got to win 2 of the 3 to make a bowl game. And again, are any of those automatic? I'm not certain they are, for the way USC has been playing. So there's a lot of games coming up and a lot of Big Ten matchups there that are going to dictate where teams finish. And that's so important when it comes recruiting time. Going down to Tier 6, Purdue, Rutgers, and Maryland. Purdue lost to Northwestern, freeing the Wildcats from the cellar and keeping the Boilermakers in the bottom tier. Rutgers is currently on a 4-game skid, and Maryland is one of the league's biggest underperformers. There's a lot going on in the Big Ten. Obviously, those teams at the bottom want to claw their way out of that, and recruits are paying attention. You're seeing people decommitting from teams, going to visit competitive teams. But nonetheless, under this new realigned 18-team Big Ten, they now have 4 of the top 10 teams in the country with the resurgence of the Hoosiers. Now the race is on to see who will be in the Big Ten championship game and see how many teams the Big Ten can land in the CFP. Thank you so much for listening or watching this episode. Please share with any of your friends. And of course, you can go to IlliniGuys.com and subscribe there for 27 cents a day. The key feature, besides all the other stuff you get of Illini coverage, is the message boards, where you can go back and forth with Brad, Ked, Matt, myself, and Larry. It's a lot of fun. It's a 2-way street. Of course, listen to our other podcasts. We have the Illini Guys Sports Spectacular and Big Sports Radio. They're once a week, 2-hour radio shows that we put on podcast as well. Be looking for those. Subscribe at your podcast distributor. And we have our Illini flagship, which is I on the Illini with the capital I, because we're really clever. But please subscribe to all those podcasts. You get those, and that way you can take care of not missing a single episode. And until next week, keep moving forward.